Hello, welcome to Sobriety Bestie. I am Kirsten, and this video is about my first day sober, which is also my first day in rehab for alcohol. So I got sober September 29th, 2009. So my first day sober was 13 years and 3 days ago. This is the week of that I got sober 13 years ago. It's also October 1st, 2022 today, which means some of you are doing Sober October. So if this is your first day sober or you're going sober today for the month of October for Sober October, welcome, welcome. So my specific first day of sobriety was September 29th, 2009. I was scared. I'd say I was terrified that day. It felt like at the time the scariest day of my life. I couldn't imagine a life without alcohol. It felt extreme because I was going to rehab. I was already packed. My suitcase was packed from the day before, and I was going to fly from San Francisco to Los Angeles to go to rehab. So as I was getting ready that morning, I was terrified. I felt like my whole life was over, and yeah, I was just really, really scared. There was so much unknown. I was sad. I was freaked out. I was anxious. I had so many feelings. I also didn't drink that morning, which was unusual for me. At the end of my drinking especially, I drank in the morning. I was in this vicious cycle, maybe you relate to this, where I never wanted to drink in the morning, and I never wanted to drink all the time, and I never wanted to drink alone, except I was so anxious. I would wake up petrified. I would wake up terrified, like looking at the ceiling in an anxiety attack. And I was so scared of life that the only way some of those mornings to get out of bed and to get through the morning was to drink, because drinking always calmed the anxiety down. So the fact that I didn't drink my first day sober, well, obviously I didn't drink my first day sober, but the fact that I didn't drink the morning that I went to rehab was a matter of pride. It wasn't a matter of that it was normal for me not to drink in the morning. I felt like I didn't feel like I was an alcoholic. I felt like alcohol was a problem, but that wasn't really the problem. The problem was my anxiety. I really related to having a problem with anxiety, and alcohol was my solution for anxiety. So, in fact, when I got to rehab, I was like, hey, everyone's like, hey, I'm Bob, I'm an alcoholic. And I was like, hey, I'm Kirsten, I'm here for anxiety. So I knew I had a huge problem with anxiety, and I didn't know how to deal with my anxiety without the alcohol. But so that morning that I went to rehab, I was like, it was arrogance, it was pride. I don't know how I still had any shred of pride at that moment. But I didn't drink that morning because I didn't want to show up to rehab drunk, because I wasn't an alcoholic. Only alcoholics show up to rehab drunk. That was my mindset at the time. So I flew to Los Angeles sober, which was unusual for me to be on an airplane sober. I always drank before I flew. I did take Klonopin, my benzo, that morning. I was still as prescribed. I took Klonopin twice a day, morning and night, for 2.5 years. At that point, I still had them. I brought my Klonopin to rehab that my psychiatrist had prescribed to me. So I get there, I fly to LA, and the guy who works for the rehab, the treatment center, he's picking me up at the airport. He says to me, he's like, are you sure you don't want to go back inside the airport for any reason? I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? I didn't get it, right? He's like, if you want to go into the rehab, I can't pull over on the drive to the treatment center. It's about an hour to get there. The rehab treatment center was in Malibu. He's like, it's a long drive. If for any reason you want to go back into the airport now is the only time that you can actually once you get in the car, you're in the car, that's it. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I don't get it. I don't get the code. What is the code? And he's like, if you want to drink, now's your last chance. You can go in there and have a drink. I'll wait for you. I'll be out here. Otherwise, you cannot. I'm not pulling over for any reason. I'm not pulling over for cigarettes. I'm not pulling over for a bathroom. I'm not pulling over for a drink. If you want a drink, you need to go back into the airport now. Otherwise, get in the car. And I was like, I'm not an alcoholic. I'll get in the car. Can you say denial? I get in the car. It was a nice long drive where I was super, super anxious. We get to the rehab center. They check all my bags. They look through everything. They unzip everything. They ask if I have any drugs. I was like, only my Klonopin that I was prescribed. They're looking through every little mini pocket on every jean. Everything I have, they're looking through everything. And they took my Klonopin from me. I kind of, I got a little upset. Those are mine. And they're like, well, we're going to keep them for you. You have like a med locker here. There's like a med counter. There was like a window that they opened at like med time, I guess. And so they had all the prescriptions locked in there for anybody who had prescriptions at the treatment center. So they took my meds. I still had my phone for a hot minute. And then they looked through everything, and then they had me wait in my room before the therapist, the intake therapist, was ready for me. So I was in my room. I had a roommate. She wasn't in the room at that time. I wasn't allowed to meet anybody or be with anybody yet. I was like, they were out somewhere else where I was doing the intake. So I was in my room, I was on the phone, I was texting people, I was calling people, and then they came in, they're like, we're gonna take your phone, which sucked, right? And so they took my phone, and I went to the therapist, the intake therapist. And she says, how much have you had to drink today? And I say, 0, like full of arrogance and pride, 0. I was like, I'm not an alcoholic, I have anxiety. I'm here for anxiety. She's like, this is an alcohol and drug rehabilitation center. It is dual diagnosis, but this is a drug and alcohol center. You came here for alcohol, didn't you? I'm like, I'm here for anxiety. Yes, alcohol is a problem, but actually anxiety is my problem. I drink because I'm anxious. And she's like, okay, well, and here's the moment of clarity. She says to me, how did you get that black eye? And I looked at her like, what the fucking fuck? Like, what are you talking about? She opens up her purse, and she has a compact mirror, like one of those, it's like a circle, and you open it up and there's a mirror and there's some sort of like foundation or makeup inside. She hands me the compact. I open it up and I look in her little mirror, and that was my moment of clarity. Sure enough, I had a black eye. And I had no clue that I had a black eye. I just flew on an airplane from San Francisco to LA, and I had no clue. I'm walking through an airport with a black eye. I have no clue what my face looks like. So I didn't think I had a problem with alcohol. Well, I knew it was a problem. I didn't think I was an alcoholic. But I looked in that mirror and I was like, right. And that was like when my ego cracked, when I had I surrendered. I was like, if I don't even know what my face, like, I don't know what's going on. I clearly don't know what's going on. I'm clearly out of it. I clearly need help. So I just handed her the mirror back, and I was just like, right. That put like a willingness in me to listen, to hear, to be receiving, able to receive guidance and help. And so it was really, really humbling. And just to like explain, I wasn't in a fight. Like, it didn't get the black eye from somebody else. I don't remember getting the black eye, but I had a huge fall like a week earlier in my bathroom, where I slipped in my bathroom and I fell on there was like a sliding door on the bathtub. And so it was open, and I slipped and I fell like on my back on that sliding door. And I had a huge bruise. Like, when I went to the medical doctor the next day in rehab, I had a huge bruise on my kidneys. So they were testing me for that. So I knew I had fallen and hurt myself. And I guess what happened is, as I was getting up from that, I probably slipped again, and it hit my head. Like, as I'm trying to pull up, I probably hit my head into my hand, is all I can think about, because I was alone. So I had a black eye for myself. And then the other thing about like why I didn't know I had a black eye, not just because it happened in a blackout, because I had this moment like a day or two before that. This is the last week of my drinking. I had a moment like a day or two before that where I was walking down my hallway, and I caught my reflection in my hallway mirror. Like, my closet door was open, and I saw my reflection in my mirror. And it was like I was looking dead in my eyes, like straight into my eyes. But it was like nobody was home. It felt like I was looking at a vacant shell, like a hollow, an empty shell. And I felt like what I saw in that moment, this was another huge turning point, or like moment of clarity. There were a couple of moments of clarity, like including looking in that mirror, but this was another huge one. This is what gave me the willingness to go to rehab, really. It was like I was looking in an empty shell, and I could see clearly that my spirit was about to leave my body. That was like the intuitive message, or the spiritual message, or just the knowing that I was about to die. I could see that like the energy that is me, my spirit, my soul, my life force was about to leave my body. Like, that's how bad it was. Like, that's how toxic my system was from the alcohol. That's what was happening at that point. And so I was so terrified from seeing like myself look like I was in an empty shell and I was about to die, that only people who drank like me would get this next point. Can you guess what I did? I was so scared that alcohol was killing me. Guess what I did? I did not stop drinking. I stopped looking in mirrors. I stopped looking in mirrors because I was so terrified of like what I saw in the mirror. So I didn't look in the mirror for the next week. So I didn't look in the mirror before I flew to rehab. I didn't look in the mirror until she handed me that mirror, and that's when I saw I had a black eye. So I was willing to listen. I was like, right, I don't know what the heck is going on. Clearly need help. I need to be here. For sure, I have a lot of anxiety. For sure, alcohol is a problem. Not sure about that alcoholic term or alcoholism, but I need help. So I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to be guided, helped, and assisted, coached, therapied, whatever, right? I'm here and I need to be here. Like, I need help. Like, I knew I was about to die and I was really, really close to death. And like, I really got it in that moment where I saw my reflection in the mirror, the black eye, right? And so she took my phone, and then it was time then I went into my room, and I hid. I was isolating. I was afraid. I was scared. The rehabbers were back already, like my new rehab roommates, but I hadn't met them yet. I was in my room, and then she came and knocked on my door, or the technician, the person who worked at the rehab, came and knocked on my door. He's like, why don't you come out and join us? Join your new rehab roommates or rehab housemates. And so I was super anxious and scared to meet them. I felt like, I guess I still had a bit of an arrogance there too. I felt like maybe they were alcoholics or they were addicts or they needed to be in rehab, but I was just anxious. Like, even though I knew I had a problem, I still was like, didn't want to be affiliated or associated with anybody who went to rehab, even though I was in rehab. I still had this like layer of denial, or not me, or I'm different, or fine for you, but I'm not like that. I still had something like that. I don't know if you can relate. Let me know in the comments if you relate to that kind of not quite understanding addiction at that point, and that I was in addiction. I was addicted to alcohol, and so were these people, and that we were actually the same. It was just my idea of, I don't want to be that was keeping me distance from wanting to be affiliated with them, I guess. Anyway, I went outside, I met them. They were all smoking cigarettes at this table. They were lovely. Like, I was so scared, but within like 5 or 10 minutes, it was like, oh, I was so comfortable with them. They knew how to greet me because they were me, because they had just been, they all were new in rehab too, right? They were all within a couple of days to like a month or two in rehab. So they knew what it was like to be on day one, on minute one, hour one of rehab. So they were super friendly, super welcoming. They knew that I also probably wasn't going to relate to them at first because they felt the same way as me. And then we started talking about things that I had never talked to anybody else about. So if you're struggling with addiction, with alcohol, maybe with anxiety, but alcohol helps anxiety, like you were like me, like that, and you've never met anybody else who is sober yet, or it was in recovery or getting sober, like, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, it's actually like, we're all very, very similar. Like, I felt like I was the only one who struggled with, how do you navigate all the recycling? How do I get rid of all these bottles that I'm drinking without the neighbors and my roommate knowing that I'm drinking this much? How do I navigate going to different liquor stores to buy my booze? Like, I'm going to this store, then this store, then this store, so no single liquor store knows how much alcohol I'm buying. I lived in San Francisco, so there was a lot of liquor stores near me, right? And so there were all these things that I did to try to cover up how much I was drinking, and nobody knew about that. I never told anybody about that. Nobody knew how much I was drinking. They might have been able to see it from the outside that I was drunk, but I was doing all these things to hide how much I was actually needing. I needed alcohol. I needed alcohol to breathe, to get out of bed, to like navigate life. I needed alcohol to do the laundry, right? Like, I needed alcohol to do everything. So nobody knew all that. But as soon as I met these rehab buddies, like, one of them was my roommate. We actually shared a room together. We were in the same room, 2 different beds, right? But then some of the other people were in the other rooms. Like, everybody had a roommate. All the rooms had double beds in them, or 2 double beds in them. And so I went out and met all my housemates and my roommate, and they had all struggled with the same kinds of things as me. They're like, yeah, the recycling. Yeah, the hiding of the alcohol. Yeah, the drinking before you go somewhere, the pre-game, the post-game, drinking when you get home, drinking, like, I used to, like, you drink a certain amount of wine, and then once like, my roommate would go to bed and the wine would be like, like at a certain level in the bottle. And then I would drink it, and I couldn't stop drinking it. And then I'd go get another bottle, the same one, and I'd drink it. Then I'd have to drink it to the same level again, so that when she woke up, she wouldn't know how much I drank. So these were like some of the kind of things that I did at the end of my drinking to kind of hide, or try to hide, like, the nature of how much I was drinking, or like the nature of my problem, or the fact that I had a problem. And so they did the same things. These people that I met were talking about the same things, and it was such a relief. Like, it instantly, like, So much of my shame just like disappeared and like went away, like evaporated, because I wasn't the only one who did this. I wasn't a bad person. I wasn't wrong. There wasn't something wrong with me. This is just what alcohol addiction looked like. And I had no idea what alcohol addiction, alcohol dependency, alcohol use disorder looked like. So it was very, very comforting. And maybe you feel some comfort from hearing some of like what it looked like for me at the end, or maybe you've already been to recovery meetings or rehab or around other people who have struggled with alcohol dependency, alcohol addiction, alcohol use disorder as well. And so you already know that feeling, but let us know in the comments. I think the more people that chime in and have a conversation about this, the more normalized it can be, that this is just what it is. This is what it looks like at the end of drinking when we are drinking a lot. Now, keep in mind, alcohol use disorder is a diagnosis, right? And it goes mild, medium, mild, moderate, severe. It's a spectrum condition. So I was probably at the severe end of it, right? It's going to look different for everybody. We're all going to be somewhere different on this alcohol use disorder spectrum. But for somebody who drank like me, I needed the alcohol. I needed it. Otherwise, I was in an anxiety attack, a panic attack. Now, I was also on Klonopin or benzodiazepines, and sometimes I would forget to take my pill, and I didn't understand that would kick me into benzo withdrawal. So before I got sober, sometimes I was going through benzo withdrawal and not knowing it. I was calling that anxiety attacks. If I forgot to take my benzos for a day or two, I would wake up with these anxiety attacks, think that something is wrong with my head, something's broken in my head, not know that I'm actually having a chemical detox experience, and that alcohol actually helped that. The mechanism with alcohol and benzos is very similar on the brain. It works with GABA. And so I'm not a doctor, right? I'm not a scientist. I'm just somebody who has done a lot of research, wanted to figure out what the fuck was going on, because there was a lot going on. So I'm somebody who hasn't had a drink for 13 years and 3 days. I'm somebody who hasn't been on benzodiazepines for about 13 years. I got off them about 10 days into rehab. So almost 13 years off of benzos, right? Like this week, just about. So there you have it. There's the story of my first day getting sober, my first day in rehab. I have other playlists on this channel about getting sober, about emotions in sobriety, about early sobriety. Be sure to check that out. Like the video if you like it, support the channel, subscribe. I would love to have you as a subscriber here if you're feeling the vibe of Sobriety Bestie and Sobriety Bestie world. If you're here because you are trying to get sober, welcome. Welcome. You're not alone. You're not the only one who's going through or who has ever gone through what you're going through. It's probably what a lot of us go through. Let's just lift that shame right now. If you're here for Sober October, welcome. If you're here because you are sober and you want to thrive sober, that's super cool too. Welcome. I wish you much peace and freedom on your healing journey. I can't wait to see you in the comments. Definitely leave a comment below. What did you relate to in this video? What stood out to you? What made sense to you? Let's join it. I know a lot of people are anxious or nervous or private and they don't leave comments, and that's totally cool. But if you have the courage and the inspiration to leave a comment, a lot of the people who don't leave comments read the comments, and the comments are more helpful than the video itself. You know what I mean, right? That a lot of what you learn about sobriety and this journey of sobriety is more not about the people who make the videos. I mean, right? It's about the people who also write the comments, that you really relate to what people write in the comments. So I encourage you to write something in the comments if you want to be a little seen and visible. It probably is going to help somebody. That's enough of my little pitch, my little spiel there about leaving a comment. I hope to see you in the comments. And the last thing I'll say is that I already know you're really courageous. This idea of the concept and contemplating the idea of getting sober and staying sober is a really, really courageous thing to do. Living sober is an act of courage. It's an act of bravery. You're fucking courageous, okay? You are courageous. I just want to say that right now. I feel like a part of me wants to laugh because it's funny to see my fierceness, but you're really courageous. You're really courageous. This is a courageous journey. This is a journey of courage. And have a beautiful day. So I will link the playlist right here for early sobriety and for sober emotions. Maybe those are something that you want to relate to and want to check out.